Well, you definitely want a good charisma. You definitely want a good constitution. Probably want at least a 14 in dexterity to max out medium armor. And that again leaves us with the wisdom that's probably not that great.
Yeah.
Besides, wise people don't enter into contracts with Satan anyway. So
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom, and we are going over his picks for the best feats for the Warlock class today. Hooray!
yeah, my personal favorite class. How happy I was when I found that you decided to dedicate an entire day of the week to it for so long.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on with Warlock. I mean, that
Yeah,
Warlock Wednesdays lasted over a year. That's
yeah,
over
and
over 50 videos dedicated just to Warlocks
yeah,
on this channel. Go watch them.
they're all really good because Warlock's got a lot of cool stuff to it.
They got a lot of crap too.
And their feat, yeah, well, their feat selection is not crap. They get a bunch of cool stuff because they're not super strapped to take any one feat in particular, unlike something
And
like
a,
a martial class.
and a lot of them can be subbed out for invocations as well, like depending on what you want to do.
Exactly.
There's so many different ways a warlock can go.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll try and cover a lot of that here today. Um, Starting off, if you're not playing a Hexblade, everybody that's not a Hexblade, I highly recommend. I know it's boring, but stick with me for a second. Take moderately
All right,
armored.
you
If
have
you
sold
don't,
me on this for this particular class.
yeah, and if you're not playing Hexblade, and if you're not multi-classing into something that's going to get you better armor proficiency,
Yeah,
so if you're going just straight Warlock and you don't plan on doing any of that nonsense, just pick it up. You go from probably an average of 14 armor class to 19. It's like you've cast shield permanently.
and then you can cast shield on top of that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I seriously, it's the best way. Warlocks can reliably hold a shield. Unless you're doing weapon stuff, which most of them, if you're not Hexblade, aren't. So if you're doing, the regular blaster stuff, you've definitely got a hand to hold a shield. No problem. So yeah, take moderately armored. You will thank me for it when your character survives more than 5 sessions.
all right. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
That's a good pick for warlock.
And take it early. Take it at level 1 if you can. If you can't take it at level 1, take it at level 4. Seriously, it's that important. Having an AC of like 18 or 19 at early levels is near impenetrable. Like it takes a lot for an enemy to hit you when you have that good of an armor class at low levels. So it'll feel really good.
All right.
Now,
What else are we looking for to what are the weaknesses we're trying to address?
so some of the weaknesses with Warlock is that they don't get a lot of spells known.
Mhm.
Now, that weakness is kind of counterbalanced by the fact they don't have many spell slots to cast those spells with anyway. So do
That's
you
not
really
a
care that
counterbalance.
much?
That's
Yeah,
that's
it's
an additional crippling effect.
yeah. So we'll also look to fix that, right? We'll
Yeah,
look for
you can't,
feats that give
you'll
us
say,
more spell
"Oh, it's
slots.
okay that you don't have feet because you also don't have knees."
Well, you wouldn't worry about not having feet then, would you?
That's true.
So so stuff like Fey Touch and Shadow Touch work really well on a Warlock because Misty Step is a really useful spell to have. But when you're a ninth level Warlock and you have fifth level pack slots, you don't want to be spending that fifth level pack slot on a Misty Step, do you?
No.
So being able to cast it for free and in a pinch, being able to cast it with your spell slots is really, really handy. It also, I will say, stuff like Fate Touch works really well if you're taking a couple level dip into another full caster to get a couple of first level slots, maybe a couple second level slots. A lot of Warlocks will do this because really the spells that you want to cast a lot are the low level ones, right? You can probably get away with having one or two big high level spell effects per fight.
Yeah.
Your problem comes in the fact that you don't have room for the low level spells like shield, silvery barbs, things like that. So with that, taking a couple first level and second level spell slots can be a way to remedy that. And additionally, feats like Fey Touch and Shadow Touch can also do that.
All right. I see Faye touched on here. I don't think you mentioned Shadow touched.
Yeah, well, I put it on the written list. Just it kind of stands in for both of them. I do think Fey Touch is
Wow.
better because it gives you better spells. Really, that's all. But if you have a personal preference, it's fine.
Now,
You
let me clear something up here. These spells that you get through the feats, you can use them in with slots in a pinch,
yes,
you say. Now,
yes, with these two feats in particular,
right, right. Now a spell like uh, invisibility, that upcast, right, to
it
target more
does.
people. So
Yeah,
using that at fifth level, that
yeah.
I
You
mean,
might
you
be
could,
able to turn your whole party invisible,
right.
and that would be
Okay,
great.
so that's neat.
Yeah. And I will say also, if you do cast them using the feat, the free casting it gives you, it
Yeah,
casts it at its lowest possible level. So if you
right.
cast it with free use, you only make one person invisible. Use a spell slot on it, make your whole party invisible.
That's it's
So
nice to have that option.
yeah. So that might be one reason why you would pick Shadow Touch to Fate Touch. Like I said, not a personal preference. I'm not going to split hairs over it. Pick both if you want.
Well, I just wanted to ask as well. Like that's the example I thought of off the top of my head. Are there any other spells like that you'd get with these that upcast?
So, well, Misty Step doesn't upcast,
Right.
so not that. But as for the additional spells you can pick, Shadow Touch has a really limited selection because you only get first level Necromancy or Illusion spells.
Mm,
Necromancy, you're not getting much outside of like False Life,
yeah.
and you don't want to upcast False Life. And Illusion, really, Silent Image is the best you're going to get, and it has no upcasting
Yeah.
um,
All right.
rules.
Well,
So
you
yeah,
might
and
get some
with
mileage out of
Fey
invisibility
Touch,
though.
yeah, with Fey Touch, you could pick up Bless, which does target more creatures if you upcast it. That could be useful.
Sure.
Aside from that, Silvery Barbs doesn't have any upcasting. Gift of Alacrity doesn't have any upcasting. So pretty much just Bless.
Yeah. Well, still, you got two good options there.
Yeah. Additionally, you might want to take something like Magic Initiate. It's not nearly as useful on a Warlock because they have a bunch of different ways to get a familiar.
Hmm.
You can either go Pact of the Chain, which just gives you a familiar and gives you a really cool one. You can get an imp that's invisible and does a ton of damage to people. It's great. Highly recommend it. Or you can go with the Tome, Pact of the Tome, and you can get the Book of Ancient Secrets invocation, which gives you both ritual casting, which is why you don't see that on this list today. If you
I was
want
going to
ritual
ask about that.
casting, yeah, if you want ritual casting, it's really easy to get. Just pick Tome and pick Book of Ancient
Well, I
Secrets.
mean, but
And
if you don't want to pick Tome for some reason, I mean, all right, we're not. Yeah, I mean, there might be reasons you now. So if you pick Chain, then you get a familiar. If you pick Tome, you're not picking Talisman. What's the other one?
Pact of the Blade.
Blade. Right. Then yeah.
Yeah. And see, the
All
other
right.
issue is
All
if you
right.
as
I
a
was
Pact
going
of
to
the
ask about Ritual Caster, but yeah, you probably don't need it because you're not picking either of those.
yeah, the other issue that you would have if you were going something like Blade and wanted to be a ritual caster is the 13 Wisdom. A
Hmm.
Warlock, much like a sorcerer, is going to have a lot of difficulty swinging that because you probably want a good you definitely want a good charisma, you definitely want a good constitution, probably want at least a 14 in dexterity to max out medium armor. And that again leaves us with the wisdom that's probably not that great.
Yeah.
Besides, wise people don't enter into contracts with Satan anyway. So anyway, the
Ouch.
well, it's true. Past that, telekinetic works really well in a warlock. They don't have a lot of great usage for their bonus action unless you're doing something like a hexblade and you took like polar master or something. Most warlocks don't have a consistent use for their bonus action. Chain warlocks can. Back to the chain warlocks can because they can command their familiar to attack with their bonus action if they took a specific invocation. I think it's investment of the chain master.
Right.
So that might be a little bit of confliction there, but for everybody else, having a 5 foot shove as a bonus action at range and a improved mage hand. Warlocks only get two cantrips at character creation. One of those is going to be Eldritch Blast.
Yeah.
So you really only get one. So Mage Hand might not have found its way onto your sheet. So this would be a great opportunity to pick that up. Or if you did pick it up, it's even better.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of telekinetic.
Yeah, warlocks get to, like I said with sorcerer, have their cake and eat it too, because they get to set up those big AOE spells like Sickening Radiance, Hunger of Hadar, all those stuff. Spike growth. One of the subclasses even gets spike growth. So there's plenty that you can do by yourself. You don't have to rely on other people to set that up for you.
Nice.
Um, Past that, I will still and always and forever recommend Resilient. Now, what you pick here is actually kind of a difficult choice because you want, well, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's not a difficult choice. Warlocks automatically get proficiency in Wisdom saving throws. Sorry,
Oh, there you go.
briefly misremembered that. See, if you are taking this, you're definitely taking it for Constitution. Now, that being said, it's very common for Warlocks to start as a level 1 sorcerer because that gives them Constitution saving throw proficiency at level 1 and some extra spell slots and some extra spell selections. Then go into Warlock. Or go into Warlock, then go back into Sorcerer, then go back into Warlock, then go back into Sorcerer. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. So if you did that, obviously you don't need this. But if you're playing
Yeah.
a straight class Warlock, then this is a very, very good thing to pick up. Um, you can, I've not mentioned Warcaster because Warlocks can get an invocation called Eldritch Mind, which gives them advantage on concentration checks, which is the main thing that you're taking Warcaster for.
Now, what if you've got a build in mind that's really invocation thirsty, and you don't want to take that one? Would you take
Yeah,
Warcaster?
maybe. It is actually interesting. Warlocks can be more invocation hungry, especially at early levels, than they are
Mhm.
feat hungry.
Yeah.
It's interesting like that because a lot of the stuff I've talked about, Fey Touch, Telekinetic, you can live without it if you have to, right?
Hmm.
If you need to take Eldritch Mind early because you're like, or if you need to take Warcaster early because you're like, for the strategy I have in mind, I do not have room for Eldritch Mind until like level 11 or something.
Hmm.
And that might be too late to wait for you. Probably is too late to wait. So if you don't have room, heck yeah. There is also Eldritch Adept. Um,
I forgot what that does.
it's Yeah, it just gives you an extra invocation.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so you basically get an invocation as a
You could
feat.
swap a
And
feat for an invocation.
yeah, so that is something that you can do. Obviously, Warcaster is better than Eldritch Mind because it gives you some other benefits alongside the advantage on
Right.
concentration checks. Um, so you're not going to swap that for Eldritch Mind, but there might be something else that you would swap for it. So if you get into later tiers, no feats really appeal to you. There's an invocation that you really, really want. Eldritch Adept might be something that you want to look into.
Okay.
So that could help. You talk about maybe you're starved on one side, but you're overflowing on the other. That might be able to help even that out a little bit.
Yeah, take a look through all the invocations before you finalize your
Read them,
decision on feats.
read them carefully.
Yes. Watch the videos.
Yeah, we got a whole guide on them, and Sam was very good at pointing out the ones that were very, very bad. Don't take anything that says you can cast this spell with a warlock spell slot once per day.
Yes.
That's it.
Well, when I mentioned, take a look at the invocations before you decide on feats, that's not really what I was referring to because,
Right.
I'm talking about the ones that you could, maybe substitute for a feat.
Right. And I will also say Eldritch Adept does, you are a warlock, if we're talking about this in the context of warlock. It requires you to meet the prerequisites for the invocation. So it would not allow you to get like a level 14 invocation
Right.
early. So you still have to meet the prerequisite there, so you're not cheating anything there. And if you're not a warlock and you take it, you have to take an invocation with no prerequisite. So that's very important to think about
Well,
if you're not a warlock.
there's a lot of those.
There are, yeah. So past that, inspiring leader as a charisma caster is really great to have. Warlocks, there is one warlock subclass that gives temporary hit points to the whole party. It's the celestial, but it doesn't get that ability until level 11. So if you want to take inspiring leader early for that, if you want to wait on that, it's fine. If you know your campaign won't get to that point. But most warlocks are to celestial because it's only one subclass out of the many, and it's probably one of the weaker ones, to be honest with you. So That being said, Inspiring Leader is great, gives your entire party temporary hit points and all of their summons and all of their pets and all of their familiars and all of their undead and everything like that. Obviously, it doesn't stack with the temporary hit points. So if you have something like a Artillerist Artificer in your party, you don't need it.
Yeah. All right.
Um,
What else you got?
One little shout out that I'll give, it's not super necessary, but if you get to high levels and you're wondering what to take, especially if you want to round up your charisma, Gift of the Gem Dragon, I think is a really good feat. It gives you a +1 to your charisma, and it also gives you a good defensive reaction. Now, you may have shield at this point if you did some multi-classing, right?
Hmm.
If you took some levels in sorcerer, so you may not need this. But if you didn't, if you just went straight warlock, this can give you a defensive reaction to push somebody back 10 feet if after they hit you, which could, if you distance yourself properly, prevent them from then walking the last couple of feet to make their subsequent attacks against you.
Yeah,
So
that's
it,
that's a good thing to keep in mind. Yeah,
yeah, it's really only for ranged warlocks because as a melee combatant, you're going to be up close anyway, and that 10-foot shove isn't really going to do a whole lot for you.
unless unless you're standing like between them
Yeah,
and a wall of fire or something.
yeah, that will do something. You're right there. So yeah, it's a neat defensive tool if you're playing a ranged warlock. Pay attention to your positioning, how far away enemies are for you, what their movement speed is, and if you play your cards right with that, you can avoid a lot of damage by using it.
All right, and I think we're getting into the generic ones now.
Yeah, lucky and tough.
Yeah.
Warlocks will appreciate both of these just as much as any other class. They're not really struggling in any area where these feats excel in. You're a D8 class, so you're not as squishy as the sorcerers or wizards. So you don't need tough as much, but it's still nice to have. Um, but lucky is always good. It will always help you to make your saving throws, might help you make a concentration saving throw on that big spell. Because, hey, as a warlock, you really want to hold concentration on your spells because you don't have a lot of spell slots to recast them with.
No, you don't.
So,
Um,
yeah,
I've got one.
go
Hear
ahead.
me out here. All right, we've talked several times about how warlocks and sorcerers go so nicely together, multi-classing. It's
It's peanut butter and jelly.
yeah, you almost certainly want to do this. However, if for some reason you just want to go straight warlock, don't want to dip into sorcerer, for a feat, what about meta magic adept?
So that is an interesting selection, and I could definitely see merit in it.
All
So,
right,
what meta magics would you be interested in, Bob?
so
Curious.
I'm thinking twin spell for
Mhm.
my Eldritch Blast. I know I only get to use these because it's a cantrip, so they cost 1 point, right? I get to use this twice for long rest, but
Correct, sorta. There's a little rules problem with that. Do you want me to explain
uh
it now? Do you want to finish your thought?
go no, go ahead.
Okay. So Twin Spell will work on Eldritch Blast as long as you are below level 5. Twin Spell requires that the spell only has one target.
Oh, right,
So
right,
once your
right.
Eldritch Blast can target two things, it's no longer eligible for Twin Spell.
Okay. All right. Well, hmm. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna ride it through.
It's still a good pick. Don't
To
get me wrong.
level to level 5. You this is the play pattern. Like you've uh you've got your choice of agonizing blast or repelling blast. I like repelling blast. Um, the idea being you've got your area of danger behind two dudes
Right?
twice a day. You get to double blast them into it.
Right. And notably, that will be better than something like Quicken Spell for levels 1 to 4, because a Quicken Spell would cost you two sorcery points,
Hmm.
so you'd only get to do it once per day. Twin Spell, you get to do it twice.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I was thinking.
Now, I would say if you then would, I know we just talked about not multi-classing into Sorcerer, but if you did multi-class into Sorcerer and got to level 3, you could swap out Twin Spell for something else.
Yeah, but even with that, I mean, how many? All right, meta magic. What is that? Meta magic adept. That gives you two sorcery points and
Two meta magics.
2 meta magics. So
Yep.
we're still not dead yet. Even after level 5, we got another meta magic to lean on. I
Yeah.
haven't thought this far through, but it's not dead in the water, is what I'm saying.
No, it's totally could be fantastic. You could take something like Empowered Spell just to make your few big spells even more impactful. Um, you could there's a lot of different things you could do.
Yeah,
Quicken Spell is very good if you want to just make a ton of attacks in one round. It'll only work once per day because you get 2 sorcery points, and Quicken Spell
yeah.
costs 2 sorcery points. But if you need it, it's basically Action Surge, and fighters aren't complaining about only having that once per short rest. So, you get to
Well,
do
that's
your
short rest. This is long rest.
true, yes. Um, but I mean, hey, if once you get up to the point of having 4 Eldritch Blasts, doubling that to 8, even just once a day, is pretty spicy.
Yeah, all right. So even sticking with Eldritch Blast.
Yeah.
Potential
So
here.
there's a lot of stuff you can do for it. Also, with Quicken Spell, you can quicken a leveled spell and then cast Eldritch Blast. It's probably
Yeah,
the more powerful thing to do, especially in early tier play. So if you've got, maybe think of it like this, right? You got a Sickening Radiance, and you can fit 4 of the 6 enemies in there. But you got 2 that are just out of it. Well, now you can quicken the Sickening Radiance to put it down. Then you can cast the Eldritch Blast with Rebelling Blast to push them in. Now you got all of them
yeah,
in there.
love that. Of course, this is all like an academic exercise. I mean, just yeah, multi-class and sorcerer.
It's I can't argue with it much. There is though, it's like there are some subclasses of Warlock that I do think give you very tasty benefits at all levels of play, like the
Mm.
Genie.
Oh yeah,
I would have a hard time multi-classing out a Genie. I'm going to be honest with you. So I might take your advice if I was playing a Genie Warlock.
cool. Score one for Bob. Nice. All right.
You got one. Congratulations.
All right. Well, those were the best picks for Warlock feats. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you for joining us and watching this video. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Your picks for the Warlock feats and your criticisms of our choices. We'd love to hear them. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.